Alright, so we got the 246 spoilers, and this chapter is super exciting. We're seeing what happened after Sukuna had fired off those slashes at Higuruma and Kusakabe at the end of the previous chapter, after he found out that Judge Man did give the verdict of a death penalty to Sukuna as well as confiscation. However, he didn't confiscate his curse technique, he actually just confiscated his curse tool, the Kamotoke, which allowed Sukuna to fire off those slashes, which we thought was possibly going to kill Higuruma and Kusakabe, but the chapter starts with Higuruma cursing himself for a lack of experience in battle, while Kusakabe uses simple domain. Sukuna begins to analyze. He says everyone's basic cursed energy strengthening technique and Yuji's basic training has improved remarkably, and although it's not much as domain amplification, Kusakabe managed to dilute Sukuna's curse technique and mitigate the damage using simple domain. Kusakabe, while cursing that he almost died, realizes that all the slashes of Sukuna aren't the slashes that cuts the world. Alright, so this is great news, because I didn't want Higuruma to die. I don't really care too much about Kusakabe. I mean, he's fine, but he doesn't need to be protected the way that Higuruma does, for more reasons than just one with him. But I just assumed that Sukuna was just firing off those slashes that cut the world, quote unquote, or let me borrow a term from One Punch Man, atomic slash, because that's essentially what it is. It's like Sukuna doing a cleaver or dismantle at the atomic level. You know, it's supposed to parallel to how Limitless works from Gojo. But no, he's not exclusively using those. He just used his standard slashes. I guess it just, you know, takes more cursed energy to do the atomic slash, I suppose. And Kusakabe using simple domain here, that's not too shocking because it's like his thing, same way that it's like Miwa's thing. They use it for more than just an anti-domain measure. They have like techniques and stuff that they do with it, but it's also like a reinforcement here, which allowed them to survive a cleave and dismantle from Sukuna. And he probably wouldn't have been able to take this back in Shibuya because we saw that he was so terrified of a 15-finger Sukuna that he couldn't even move. So as Sukuna says, you know, they've improved remarkably in this 1 month time, you know, training with Yuji, but it is battle manga, so 1 month is like 3 years. But it's also important that Higuruma is surviving here because I really didn't need to see another Ryu, Yorozu, and Kashimo type ending for these cool characters being built up, especially Ryu. I'm still upset about that, guys. We need justice on that guy. I don't mean kill Sukuna because I don't want Sukuna to die, but like, I don't know, bring Ryu back somehow. While having a deep understanding about Sukuna's cleave and dismantle, Kusakabe wonders why didn't Sukuna use the fire from Shibuya as it was powerful enough to exercise Jogo. Kusakabe decides it's a waste of time to think about it and just thinks that Sukuna just can't use it now, so this is hilarious. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, Skillshare, because you can make 2024 the year your side hustle comes to life with Skillshare, because they have thousands of engaging classes taught by world-class creatives who have launched their own lucrative side incomes. Skillshare is where creative professionals go to learn everything they need to go from passion to paycheck. Whether you want to build a subscriber base for your email newsletter, use AI tools to increase your productivity, or to open your first Etsy shop, Skillshare can help you get there. So these classes are especially important to me, being a content creator after all. And I also had no prior experience with any of this stuff coming in. I mean, I guess most of us don't really. So that's why I was especially excited to start using Skillshare's learning paths, which are curated class sequences that help you master a specific skill. So for me, I went with the business route, and that took me to Isis Brianna's class, Build Your Dream Business, Craft Your Purpose, and Online Presence. This class was so insightful. It allowed me to complete exercises that helped me find my brand message and promise, as well as learning the needs and desires of my ideal audience. And those two together just by themselves allowed me to craft a sustainable social media strategy, which I definitely wouldn't have been able to figure out before. But I went much further than that because I have an issue with productivity, which I guess a lot of us do, to be honest. So I took Thomas Frank's Real Productivity and How to Build Habits habits that last. Thomas taught me how to set reasonable and realistic goals, what to do to reach them, and how to handle failure without giving up. He also showed me some great habit tracking and reflection systems, as well as giving me a better understanding of habit formation and how to take ownership of my own. So guys, if you're trying to get on my level as well, check out the link in the description, because the first 500 people who use that link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thanks, guys. We were wondering this the whole summer, you know, when Gojo was fighting Sukuna. And I was putting way too much thought into it, but I should just go along with Kusakabe's line of thinking here. And he just can't use it, because that's what Gege, I guess, came across in his own mind. But obviously there is a reason. And the fact that it's being brought up here, which it hasn't been mentioned in a while, I don't even think it was mentioned once during the Gojo versus Sukuna fight. So it's going to come back into play. I mean, obviously it kind of has to. It's one of the most powerful things Sukuna could do, if not the most powerful thing that he can do aside from the atomic slash and his domain expansion. Higuruma apologizes, as he says though he got the death penalty for Sukuna, confiscation applied only to the cursed tool. Kusakabe tries to encourage Higuruma by saying that they can end Sukuna using that sword and that he will protect Higuruma even if he has to die. Choso tries to attack, but Sukuna immediately disappears from sight and suddenly pierces Choso with his 2 hands. So yeah, Choso maybe could have just sat back. You didn't have to snipe him. You could have waited for like a better moment here, because Sukuna just doing the classic final boss battle manga thing where he just teleports and then just goes through the torso of the person, DBZ style. I don't know if Choso's dead here, but he is wrecked by this. I mean, it would be kind of crappy if this is how Choso dies. I mean, I expect Choso to die eventually, but if this is just how it happens, it's like, alright. Next, Ino attacks Sukuna using Nanami's dull blade. Sukuna praises as it was an attack stronger than he expected, but he instantly kicks away Ino. So, this was it, I guess. I thought Ino was going to do something more fantastical than this, and we knew that it probably had something to do with Nanami, because during the 1-month break before Gojo vs. Sukuna, Nanami's name came up, and Ino came in to talk to Gojo and Shoko about it, but we didn't know what he said. So I guess he's just using Nanami's dull blade and that's it. Or maybe his auspicious beast curse technique can work synergistically with it somehow, but he's surprisingly putting up his own against Sukuna here. Like, he's not getting completely dominated. Like, when it says that he's getting kicked away, he is, but he's like defending it with the blade. So don't sleep on Ino. Kusakabe and Yuji makes a joint attack, and Higuruma swings his executioner sword. But Sukuna easily manages to dodge and grabs hold of Higuruma and beats him up. Sukuna thrashes away at Higuruma through rubble and moves towards him. Yuji tried to keep up with Sukuna's speed as someone yells, "Don't leave Higuruma alone!" behind him. Yuji tries to keep up, but he realizes Sukuna is too fast. So yeah, Sukuna is an absolute beast in this sequence. Like, he is in full-blown final boss mode here, just ripping through all of the strongest sorcerers that we have. And I love how they're like, don't leave Higuruma alone, because yeah, he's the most important piece on the field right now. He's like the queen. You need to protect him. Is it too nerdy for me to make an analogy to chess here? Should I like compare it to Fortnite or something? As Sukuna approaches, he slashes the whole building Higuruma was in. Then we have a small flashback to the sorcerers having a discussion when Yuji said that he plans to save Megumi. Yuji says that Higuruma's curse technique is effective for the idea of saving Megumi. So here we go, Megumi coming back in. We almost forgot about him for a second, right? Technically, Sukuna is Megumi right now. Like, his body is, I don't know, morphed from Megumi's or something. We don't know what he did, but he did something, and Megumi is technically, I guess, comprised of the tissue that is making up Sukuna right now, right? I don't know where they got the extra tissue from, but that's a story for another time. Maybe it's coming from the fingers. I don't know. Cursed energy works in mysterious ways, but his soul is currently, like, repressed. He's not dead. He's still alive. It's just Sukuna's just stuffed him down there. And we know that Yuji for sure has plans to help Megumi, because he through that 1 month time skip, read through that convenient soul booklet that Tsukumo gave him, or gave to Choso to give to Yuji, and he can seemingly swap souls because he did something with Kusakabe, so I'm assuming he's going to do it with Sukuna as well. Like, he's going to get inside of Sukuna's body and, I don't know, get Megumi's soul out somehow. But that's not even necessarily what they're really talking about in this chapter at all, because Higuruma explains that whoever is cut by the executioner's sword will die with no exceptions, but the subject of death is limited to the one who received death penalty. So, man, it's about time that Judge Man is, like, making sense, Higuruma says that since it's already proved that Judge Man can recognize multiple souls in a person, if Sukuna receives the death penalty, then they can cut and kill Sukuna but still retrieve Megumi's soul without any harm. So it's like, how does that work? Like I was saying, technically Sukuna's tissue is comprised of Megumi's, right? Or we still don't know how this works. So if Sukuna gets hit with the executioner blade, then technically Megumi's body would be too. Like, they would seriously need to do some Mahito type stuff to reconfigure all of this, even if in theory they kill Sukuna with the executioner's blade. But I guess it'll be simpler than that. I guess Yuji could do something, to be honest. Maybe that's what Yuji's like true ability is. He has something like what Mahito can do with soul manipulation. Especially coming off of the sequence that we just had in the anime, I'm you. I know what that truly means, but it could easily be a multi-layered statement. And it could come full circle and it's like, yeah, I can manipulate souls too. But I do like this, and it gives us a beacon of light here. Like, oh, so this is how we could kill Sukuna and save Megumi. The executioner's sword, of course, but it's definitely not going to be that easy. Yuji suddenly asks, do you want to die, Higuruma? Yuji adds that even though you can't use reverse curse technique, you still plan to fight Sukuna. Higuruma says that he believes that he should fulfill his role and die. Yuji tries to pursue him but fails to encourage Higuruma. Higuruma manages to survive slashes, and Sukuna realizes that Higuruma used domain expansion to dilute his technique. The narrator begins to say that it's been less than 2 months since the awakening as a sorcerer at an abnormal growth rate. Sukuna was fascinated. Narrator continues to say that Sukuna was fascinated by the instant kill sword, which was brilliantly emitting light once again, and compares Higuruma to Gojo as a gemstone which is filled with talent. Break next week. So when it says break next week, I think the whole magazine's going on break, but we're probably going to get the follow-up chapter, which is like technically coming out like I think the second week of January. We're gonna get that like 2 weeks early. In theory we should. But yeah, Higuruma is a genius, or a jujitsu genius. We knew that he was. I mean, it was stated like immediately when we were introduced to him, but less than 2 months in and he already knows simple domain. At this point, he may have had a faster growth rate than Sukuna. Maybe that's another reason why Kenjaku was also interested in Higuruma. It's like, man, if you just let this guy go off for like a year, he could, in theory, surpass Gojo, or at least get straight on his level. I mean, at least in his own way. Because, like we talked about in the previous review, the Executioner's Sword is ostensibly the strongest thing in the entire series, right? And the chapter ends, in a pretty cool sequence with Higuruma, like, holding up the sword ready to go against Sukuna. Like, he's ready to die, Biggie style. So, really looking forward to seeing what's happening here, especially because it seems like Sukuna is going to do something with the Executioner's Sword. Like, I don't know if he can just somehow take that ability and then put it into a cursed tool. So if you could do that with the Executioner's Sword, that would be too broken. But man, I'm really curious to see where this goes. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. And if you liked the video, please give it a like. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.